Hi, in this video, I'm going to talk about AWS Identity and Access Management, a bit of theory to understand what IAM is, followed by a hands-on demo on the AWS console. So let's get started. AWS IAM is a web service that helps you securely control access to the AWS resources. Essentially, it allows you to manage users and their level of access to the AWS console. So what all features does IAM provide? It gives you shared access to your AWS account. It gives you granular permissions. It lets you do a multi-factor authentication, meaning it lets you use an authenticator app on your mobile device and add another layer of security. It gives you identity federation, which basically means you can connect your IAM to Active Directory like Azure AD or into Facebook or Google. So you can actually federate different identity providers. It supports PCI DSS compliance, which includes accepting, processing, storing, or transmitting credit card information securely. There are different types of IAM identities. IAM users. Think of this as a person or end user. If you remember in one of the previous videos, we created a free tier account in AWS. So you begin with a single sign-in identity which is called as root user, which has complete access to all the AWS services and resources in the account. Then we have IAM groups, which is nothing but a collection of users. Let's say you have a group called as developers or admins or HR, for example. Then we have IAM roles. You can create roles and assign them to AWS resources. For example, you might have an EC2 instance, which is a virtual machine, and you might give it a role to access S3. Then that EC2 can read or write directly to S3 without a need to set up user and password to access it. Now we also have something called as policies. It's nothing but a document that defines one or more permissions. You can attach a policy to a user's, groups, or roles. Now let's see some hands-on demo with IAM from the AWS Management Console. So I'm here in the sign-in screen with the root user login. So I'll sign in with the root account that I configured. Then type in the characters as seen in the security image. Next, enter the password. Now since I have enabled multi-factor authentication, it's asking me to enter the MFA code, which I'll punch in from the mobile device. And now I'm on the AWS Management Console homepage. If you see here on the top right, it shows me the user with which I have logged in. Then we have this drop down which shows the region. So by default, it selects the US East one, which is the Northern Virginia. You may want to select the region which is closest to you. So if you are in the Asia Pacific, you can select one of these. But note that not all regions have all the AWS services available. So if you are selecting a region which is closest to you, first make sure that the services you need are available in that region. Now for this demo purpose, I'm leaving the default US East 1 region. Now let's go to the IAM dashboard. Now the way you can do it is, since I've visited the IAM dashboard earlier, it's showing in the recently visited tab, or else you can also search for IAM here at the search box. So it will show you IAM service. If you click on that, so here is the IAM dashboard that it takes you to. The first thing you'd notice here is the region is automatically set to global and all others are disabled, which means that IAM is a global service. The users, groups, roles, etc., whatever you create are valid across all regions and not specific to a particular region. On the right side of the page, you see here is the account number with which you logged in. So in this case, it's my root account. Then there's account alias. So this account alias will be part of the URL which the users would have to log into. So the IAM users which you create, the URL for them to signing into the console is this one. So as you see, the account alias is a set of numbers and it's difficult to remember that. So there's a provision to create an account alias here. So let's try and create an alias. So I'll say visa to learn. So here if you see, it shows the new sign in URL would be this, which is kind of easy to remember. And when I click on save changes, it has given this URL. Now I can give this URL to the users which I create so that they can log into the AWS management console. So creating an alias is nothing but it creates a DNS entry behind the scenes so that this maps to the login for your account. Now, as you see here in the IAM resources, there are 0 groups, 0 users. So let's try and create users here. If I go to the users link, you see there are 0 users. The way I can create users is I'll click on add users. So I have to provide a username here. So let's say I provide Alice. And there's a way to add another user on the same screen. So let's go ahead and add another user here. Let's say Bob. Next, it's asking for the selection of AWS access type. Now, there are two provisions here. One is the access key, which is programmatic access. Now, let's say if you want to use the user for AWS CLI or using SDK within a Java program, let's say, or AWS API. In such cases, you need programmatic access, and access key is the way to go ahead. If you want to use it from a browser to log into the AWS management console, you would need a password for doing that. So it's asking us to choose which one we want. So for both these users, I'll select both these, meaning that I want to access programmatically as well as I want to use the password to log into the AWS management console. Next, for the console password, first option is auto-generated one, meaning AWS will generate a auto-generated password and provide it to us, or you can even provide your own custom password. Next, it asks whether it requires a password reset. Whenever the user logs in using the password, the user will have to change the password the moment they sign in first time with the new password. Then I'll click on next. It's asking me to set permissions. So there are no permissions as of now. And the way to do it is first add users to a group or copy permissions from an existing user or attach existing policies directly. So let's first go ahead and create a group here. So I'll create a group called admins. So I want these users to be part of the admins group, which basically gives them access to do everything. Next, I have to attach a policy to this group. Now, what is a policy? So let's say I search for a policy called S3 full access. Now, if I expand this menu and click on JSON, so you see here a policy is nothing but a JSON string with a key value pair. Uh, it has a version, it has a statement which basically says the effect, which means allow. So in this case, allow means it will allow whatever we provide in the action and the resource. In the action, it says for S3, it's star, meaning everything. And S3 object lambda, again, it's a star, meaning allow everything when it comes to S3. And the resource also is star, which means everything, all the resources. So this is basically what a policy looks like. It defines what access you can have. So you can have as granular permissions as you want. But in this case, since I want to have a admins group, I'll probably give a full administrator access to these users. So if you see administrator access permission, it's a very small JSON document which basically says allow everything. The action is star and the resource is star. So it's kind of admin access saying allow everything to these users. So let me go ahead and select this policy and then create the group. So it has created this group. and I'll click on next. So next it asks me to tag. So tag is nothing but a key value pair. You can use tags to organize, track, or control access for this user. So I'll just say team and then say admins. Click on next review. So this is the review screen. So it shows usernames I've selected is Alice and Bob. Again, the access type is programmatic and the console access. Password is auto generated, so on and so forth. It shows the group that I created, which is admins. And here are the tags. Next, I'll say create users. So it's success. So it created both the users. So if you see the table here, it's showing Alice and Bob. And now there are columns which says access key ID, secret access key, password. So it has hidden sensitive data. You can click on show here to show the values. Note that the secret access key and the password that you see on the screen, this is the only one time that you'll see these values. So make sure you store these values somewhere, because if you revisit the IAM users page, this won't be visible to you again. The access key ID and secret access key would be required in programmatic access, either through CLI or AWS API or SDKs. And the password along with the username would be used to log in through the browser to the AWS management console. Now they have button to download a CSV file. Now if you click on the download, you can open the CSV file. It shows you the same thing which we saw on the screen. So this is handy. You can download this and store it in a secure place so that next time when you revisit, you'll have the passwords and the access key IDs and the access key handy. So again, let's go back to the IAM dashboard. If I go to the users, here you see both the users are listed. So let's say I click on Alice. So here there's a user ARN. ARN is nothing but a unique value specific to this user. This is a unique ARN for the user Alice. Now in the permissions tab, it shows the permissions that the user has. Here it's showing a permission attached from a group, which means that this user is getting some permissions via the group admins. This is because we added user Alice to the admins group. Now, if you go to the groups tab, it shows groups which the user is part of. Then the tags tab shows the tags that were created. Then in the security credentials, it shows the access key ID, but note that there's no secret key listed here. So you will not be able to see that again anywhere on the browser. So the CSV file that you downloaded, make sure you store it in a secure place so that you have the access keys handy. Now let's say you want to make this access key inactive. So you can click make inactive here and basically make this access key ID inactive. Just say deactivate. Now the status goes into inactive. Now if the user tries to use this access key, the user won't be allowed to log in. If you want to create a new access key, just say create access key and it will create a new access key and it will show the new access key here. Again, this is the only one time that you will be able to see it. And if you want to download the CSV, you can do from here. So next we go to user groups. So it's showing only one group, which is the admins. So let me create another group here. Let me say it, developers group. So I'll name it developers. So here there's a provision to add a user to the group while creating the group itself. I'll leave leave it as it is for now. And here again we have to attach the policy. So let's say I want to give the developers full access to S3 service only. So if I search for S3, so there's this Amazon S3 full access. So let me attach this policy to the group developers and I'll say create group. So it has created the developers group for me. Now I can click on this. It will take me to the details. So here, if you see, there are no users listed. So what I can do is I can add users from here and I can select which users I want to do. So let's say I'll select Bob and add it to the developers group. And permissions, as we had given the Amazon S3 full access. Now if we go to users again and click on Bob, there'll be two groups now, admin and developer. So here you see it's inheriting the policy from the admins as well as developer group. Now let's say if I want to remove one of the groups, so I can do it from this groups tab. Let's say I want to remove the admin group for this user. So now the user is only part of the developers group. Going back to permissions, right? The user has permissions attached via group only, but I can also provide permissions directly to the user. And the way to do that is using the add permissions button. So if I click on that, it takes me to the same screen where there's add user to group, copy permissions from existing user, or attach existing policies directly. So let me select this option. Now let's say I want to give access to Bob to do stuff on the Lambda web services. So let me search for Lambda. So I want to give him AWS Lambda full access. So I'll attach this policy, click on review and click on add permissions. So now on the permissions tab, what you will see is there are two sections, attached directly and attached from the group. So this group thing we already saw, it's coming from the developers group, but now in the attached directly section, you see there's a direct Lambda full access given to the user in particular and not to any group. So this is the way you can attach policy directly to a user. Next, we go to the roles link. And the way to create a role is just click on create role. Now, as we saw earlier, right, roles are thing which we can attach to AWS resources so that it can access other resources. Let's say, for example, you have an EC2 instance and you want to have full S3 access from that EC2 instance. So let's go ahead and see how we can create a role for that. So here I'll select AWS service because we want to attach it to an EC2. And then it's asking for a use case. Now, since we'll be using it with the EC2 service, so I'll go ahead and select EC2. But if you have Lambda or any other service, which they have shown in the drop down here, based on the requirement, you can select the appropriate service. I'm selecting EC2 here and I'll click on next. So here I have to attach the policy. So let's say I need S3 full access. So I'll search for S3 and here there's Amazon S3 full access. So I'll select that and I'll click on next. So here I have to provide a role name. So I'll say S3 full access. In the description, they have added a default text which says allow EC2 instances to call AWS services on your behalf. In this case, the S3 full access. Next, in the trusted entities, it shows the JSON, which is nothing but the policy document. Next, we have the permissions, which is S3 full access. Then you can go ahead and add tags if you want. That's optional. I'll leave it blank for now. And then I can say create role. So it's creating the role. And now it has successfully created the role. And we see here S3 full access. Now, in subsequent videos, when we create or launch EC2 instances, I'll show you how to attach this S3 full access role to the EC2 instance. When we do that, the EC2 instance will be able to directly connect to S3, read from it, or write into the S3 buckets and do all sorts of things on S3 because we have given it S3 full access permission. So that was about users, groups, and roles. So let's go ahead and clean up whatever we have created. So for the roles, let me select the S3 full access and say delete. Now it's asking me to confirm deletion. Enter the role name in the input text field. There's just another security which AWS has added to make sure you don't accidentally delete anything. So to confirm deletion, just type in the name of the role as it is and say delete. So now it has deleted the role. So let me go to the users. So I have two users here. Let me select both and say delete. So again, it's asking me to confirm deletion by entering the word delete in the text box. So I'll type in delete and say delete. So both users are gone now. And the last one is the groups. So I'll select both the groups here and click on delete. Note that it says all the users in this group will lose the group permission. So if there were any users who are part of this group and you try to delete the group itself, the users will lose the group permissions. That's what it's trying to highlight here. And again, it's asking me to type the delete word to confirm the deletion. And then I'll click on delete. So that was all about the IAM users, groups, and roles from the AWS Management Console. Hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching.